Thank you very much for joining us this evening. My name is Rachel Talbot. I'm the Student Aspiration Lead. I will be delivering much of the information this evening, but we're also joined by Caroline Denny, who's our Careers Advisor, who I'm going to hand over to in a minute, and Jane Hall, who's our Progress Lead. And Jane's going to be monitoring the chat tonight. So if you've got any messages for Caroline once she's finished her bit, if you want to pop those in immediately, and we can pick those up. Other than that, Jane and I will pick those questions up as and when we go along. So right, so that's me with a little bit of an old photo. I'm going to hand over to Caroline. So Caroline, do you want to spend a couple of minutes talking about careers guidance?
Thank you, Rachel. So good to be here and be able to talk to everybody this evening. So I'm Caroline. I do all the careers guidance appointments at college, and Rachel is my manager. So careers guidance appointments last about 45 minutes usually. Some students come in for one appointment, some come in for two, some come in for multiple. So it's kind of tailored to what their individual requirements are. Obviously, we're going through all post-18 options, whether it's employment with training, with on-the-job training, apprenticeships at various levels, including degree apprenticeships, or those that want to go to university as well. What we're finding is at the moment, lots of people are interested in apprenticeships, but they don't quite know where to find them, what employers to research, or indeed how to compete for those vacancies. So I'm doing lots of work at the moment, trying to encourage students to not only find vacancies on the usual search engines like the gov.uk website, there are lots of others as well, but also to do some extensive employer research and to get a bit more understanding about their local, wider and national labour markets, so that they can understand more easily where those vacancies are. There seems to be a perception as well that if they've decided to go to university that they don't need careers guidance, but they're not thinking beyond those university courses and where those courses might lead and the diversity of opportunities that are available, or indeed the kind of employer links that they might have at those universities. Not all universities and not all courses are the same, of course. So I really want to encourage all students to come and have a chat with me, have a guidance appointment with me, so I can open their eyes to the possibilities that are out there, but also help them to understand how to compete for the vacancies now if they're looking for apprenticeship straight after college, but also once they've graduated, because it's tough out there. So I would like them to use me as much as they possibly can while they can. And then obviously on leaving, I signpost them to other sources of careers guidance that they can tap into later on. And if they are going to university, they should be using their university careers guidance practitioners as well. They're often a very underused service. Happy to answer any questions that anybody has now or later. I think my email is on the college website. Is it, Rachel?
Yes, yeah, I think it is. We can share it. We can share it at the end as well. Yep.
Yeah, happy to receive emails, or if students want parents to attend with them, as long as the student agrees, then that's absolutely fine as well. I would welcome that.
Excellent, lovely, thank you. Feel free if there's any questions, pop those in the chat, and then I'll hand over to Jane. And then if Caroline just stays on for a couple of minutes, if there are any specific questions, then we can do those. So, Jane, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Excellent, lovely. I'll hand over to you. So this is Jane, one of the progress leaders.
Thank you. Yeah, firstly, thank you to everyone for joining this evening. We do really, really appreciate your support. So yeah, I'm a progress leader, so I oversee all of the year ones and their progression journey whilst they're with us, and I will follow that through into year two as well. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to explain what we'll be doing after half term to support the students when looking at their next steps. So we've actually adapted our scheme of work so that he's very focused around that after half term. So I thought it'd be useful to lay out what we're going to be covering. So the first week back after half term, we're looking at the UCAS setup. What we really strongly advise is that all our students actually sign up for UCAS. So whilst there will be students at this point that are very adamant they will not be going to uni, or there are some that are unsure and at the minute they don't think they want to, the reason we encourage everybody to do that UCAS application, it's about getting guided support when filling out application forms, and it is really useful and beneficial. So whilst it's an application form for university, it covers quite a lot of the content that they would have to do if they were filling out application forms for apprenticeships or jobs. So we just think it does require specific skills, and so we're there and we encourage them to do the UCAS signing up so that it gives them an opportunity to get some guidance around filling out application forms. It also encourages students to get all their information into one place because, for example, they would need to put down their GCSE results, which exam boards, and actually when applying for some apprenticeships that can be required. So it's quite useful, really. It just gets them into that way of thinking of bringing everything into one place. So we'll be looking at the UCAS setup after first week back after half term. And then there will be the next week, we'll be very much doing research. So we're looking at what potential future pathways particular students are interested in, and also doing some course research as well. So if they were to go to university, what courses might be of interest. So that's really an opportunity for them to reflect and think about their strengths and think about the subjects that they're currently enjoying and what they might want to do in the future. Week after that, week commencing the 15th, it's an introduction to the personal statement stroke profile writing. So again, it is the personal statement in the application of the UCAS format, but writing about yourself and it's very much a skill. And so what we want to do is obviously give some guidance around that. So we do encourage everyone to do a personal statement, but it's really transferable, the skills they're learning there, because it's really useful when they're writing profiles to apply for jobs in the future. And then what we will look at is the week after that is draft statements. So this draft statement is that of the personal statement sort of profile writing. So it's just an extension of the week before, because I said it's quite challenging for a lot of students. It will be the first time they've ever had to write anything about themselves and really promote what their skills, their strengths are, what experience they've got, what their interests are. So we do spend a couple of weeks covering that. And then the final week is very much around self-reflection, but it sort of ties up all of those activities really nicely, because it's an opportunity for them to look back across their first year, look at their personal growth, because they'll be quite surprised when they sit and reflect of how they were when they first joined us. And it's an opportunity to think of some habits moving forward into the next year that perhaps they might need to tweak, change, or things they're doing well so they need to carry on through. But again, that sort of all comes out in the weeks after half term when we're looking at future pathways. So really, it's just to advertise that's what we're going to be covering. So we're sharing this so that you can encourage your young people to attend their progress sessions. It is that hour, there's an hour and a half dedicated on every student's timetable each week. So it's just to ask you to support us and get your young people to the sessions. And as it says at the bottom, the aim of these sessions is to support students to make informed decisions about their next steps, and really to develop the confidence as well and give them some knowledge and skills when going through an application process. And to keep future opportunities open, because what we do know is there are a lot of students at this stage that might say yes, we might not want to go to university at this point, but you'll be surprised how many people change their minds as time goes on. So if they've been involved in setting up their UCAS account earlier on, it alleviates some stress if they do change their mind further down the line, because year 2 learning is very intense. It does sort of crank up another level after they come back from that summer break. So that's why we try and get this in now before they break for summer, when there's more time. And obviously having more time means people can make more informed choices rather than rush decisions. Okay. And again, if you've got any questions, please feel free to pop those in the chat. Thank you, Rachel.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jane. Are there any questions in the chat yet before I move on? Okay, I will make a move. So tonight, okay, the purpose of us kind of meeting with you this evening is really so you can understand how best to support your young person. So we will talk a lot about UCAS, okay? If you've had kind of older children who've gone to university, there's a fair few significant changes that have happened in the past 12 months with regards to personal statement, in the past 2-3 years with regards reference writing, and things such as that, and obviously lots have developed as far as apprenticeships go as well. The way that UCAS works, okay, so that hasn't massively changed. UCAS is a charity, okay, so it's got a really good website. It's lots and lots of information, advice, guidance, and support for young people, and they actually do all the processing of those applications, okay, so they're the middle person between the schools and colleges and the universities. Lots of really good work within the sector, but also checking things like fraud, verification checks, exam certificates, international qualifications and things like that. Okay, what it doesn't do, okay, is it doesn't make those offers or decisions. So they're made by the universities. The universities also set their entry requirements. Doesn't give advice on finance. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, okay, or an immigration or visa. So if students, an international student, have only come to the UK with less than 3 years, okay, we probably need to be sitting down and talking about are they a UK student or are they an international student? And that's something that the universities will talk about, and we should ask when it goes to open days. So the UCAS has got a page called the Hub. Okay, so students will be, when they register next week, okay, they will be able to access the hub. Lots and lots of information on there, whether that be universities, apprenticeships, looking at courses, shortlisting courses, subject tasters, work experiences, loads and loads of different things on there. So I'll encourage you to kind of sit down with your young person and to start looking at that with them and work through that with them as well. So as I say, there is going to be information around HE, so higher education, things like apprenticeships, studying abroad, how to whether they could take a gap year, but also information on like kind of getting a job. So we know lots and lots of young people are just looking to get into the workplace. Okay, what you'll find, okay, is there's over 35,000 courses available on UCAS. Students can search for open events, they can do virtual tours of different universities, they can pop their predicted grades into there and turn those into tariff points. There's chats on there where students can speak to different students that are at the university that they're thinking about. There's things like short courses, taster courses. There's some good quizzes on there where they can start looking at, if they're unsure what they want to do, perhaps starting thinking about their skills and what different courses might be out there. It's obviously not going to be perfect, but to start perhaps generating some ideas and making some matches. And then obviously it's the point at which to start the actual UCAS application. So the UCAS application only goes to the universities. It doesn't go to apprenticeship providers. So just talking a little bit about what those options could be after college, okay, when it comes to like those HE pathways. So there are things like certificates of higher education and diploma of higher education, which is the equivalent of the first and second year of a degree course. As HNCs and HND. So at college, we do offer 2 HNCs. We offer a HNC in engineering and a HNC in esports. So that's our students stay on site. They come and they remain at college for another year, and they have slightly reduced, massively reduced actually, tuition fees for those courses. We'll talk about that a little bit further along the line. And then those ones are accredited by Coventry University. As you know, we're in a partnership with them, and they will allow direct entry onto the second year of those courses. And then there's things like higher apprenticeship. So if students are on a level 3 course at the moment, they will be able to progress on to level 4 qualifications. They could do, some students might have a change of mind of what they want to do. So they might have picked courses where they haven't got the entry requirements for their undergraduate course, so they could perhaps do a foundation degree, or if they've had challenging personal circumstances and they're not working at the grades that they would like to be at, that's another option. The one that most of us would have heard about is our bachelor's or undergraduate degree. So the majority of those are 3-year courses to be full time, but there is the option to do a placement year as part of that, which makes that a 4-year course, or a year to studying abroad as well. And then lots of students, lots of you will have heard about degree apprenticeships. So that is where an employer sponsors you to go through and study your degree. They're very, very competitive. It's probably one of our most aspirational choices for our students. They're up against, obviously, with universities, they're competing for course places and higher grade course grades, but actually alongside the degree apprenticeships, they're also competing for employment as well. So we do get students to get on them every year, but they are hard to get on, and it requires students to have a really, really strong application, perhaps some work experience and some of these virtual work experience and spotlights that we've talked about. Just a little bit of information about some additional options for students with EHCPs, perhaps ASD or learning disabilities, learning difficulties. There is something called supported internships, which students with an EHCP can access. And there is a supported employment service. There's one in Warwickshire, there's a separate one, Leicestershire and Coventry as well. For young people with autism and learning disabilities who are looking to get into work, and they will provide tailored support for that young person to enter the workplace with a job coach and things like that. So just to give you a quick overview of that. Are there any questions so far, Jane?
Hello. Yes, there is one that's come up in the chat. I was just replying, but it was, I think what the question is asking is, at what stage does a student who have been in the UK qualified to be classified as a home student?
Yep. So that would usually be after 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay. But it depends on quite a few things like visa status and things like that. So we do get quite a few students that take a gap year after college to make that up to the 3 years and then reapply after that. But if that's something you'd like to know any more about, please pop down and speak to kind of myself or Caroline, and we can support with that. So yeah, and go to the open days and ask the universities, and they'll be able to tell you as well. Okay, fab, thank you. So I think what we're thinking about is here, so when young people are thinking about university, okay, or their options, is it something that they're going to enjoy? Okay, is it worth investing that time and effort, regardless of what that next step is? Is it right for where they want to go further down the line? So this is what we were saying with Caroline earlier. Actually, if they got a career path in mind that they want to head in the direction of, and if they have, then there's obviously a pathway that will allow them to get there. Or do they have a course that they really want to do, but maybe perhaps lots of courses are very versatile. So a degree in geography, for example, can take you down lots and lots of different paths. So do they understand what studying that course will allow them to access in the future? And what are they looking for? So if they are looking to stay at home, are they looking for they want a city campus where it's buzzing and they're in the middle of a city? Do they prefer something more rural? What are the transport links like? Are they able to get home easily if they want to? Are you able to get up and see them if that's what you want? Every course is very, very different. So every course has got a different assessment style. So some students are quite happy and thrive on exams. Others would much rather have kind of ongoing assessments, assignments that they're handing in, essays, perhaps group works and things like that. So when you're looking at universities with them, work out what is best going to suit their style, which suits them. And like I say, lots of courses you can get to exactly the same qualification, okay, but with a slightly different assessment style. So play to their strengths. Think about what uni as well is going to give them. So has it got extracurricular activities? Are the clubs, societies, things like that they're interested in? And obviously the costs are things like accommodation. Tuition fees are standard from university to university, but accommodation varies. The cost of getting home varies. Are they needing to travel home or kind of buy a train ticket or a season ticket? Things like that. They're the types of things to start thinking about. Again, on UCAS, lots and lots of information to help. There's UCAS Lives, there's events and things like that you can join. I'm going to flick through these a little bit. Okay, and then talking about apprenticeships. Okay, so there's lots and lots of different apprenticeships. Okay, there's over 600 different apprenticeships. Some of them are kind of actively advertised. So I'll show you some places you can look in a minute. Others might be like the physiotherapist, for example, within the local area. Things like midwife within the NHS, they often will want you employed with the NHS first, and then we'll give you that opportunity to progress into being a physiotherapy once you're employed within that. But yeah, accountancy is a really popular one. Engineering is really popular. You get lots within kind of finance. Loads and loads of different things, and these are right throughout the country. So different areas have got different kind of labour markets. So like in the Midlands, for example, manufacturing, engineering, health, education are really popular, whereas you look in other countries and you perhaps like kind of look in Manchester or kind of down in Kent, and you see lots of things like laboratory scientists. So it varies from course to course. So the thing to think about with apprenticeships actually, as a student, do they want to stay at home and do an apprenticeship, or do they want to go away for the right apprenticeship? So are they happy to kind of live in a shared house? Last year we had a student that went up to Salford and she got an apprenticeship with BBC Sport as a journalist. Previous year before that, we've had a student that went to be a lab scientist. Up on the Wirral with Unilever, we've had students that have gone and joined the Metropolitan Police. So there are good options out there. It's just thinking, is that the right thing for me? Just to give you an idea of where we're at. So at the moment, we're currently working at level 3 for an advanced apprenticeship. So anything above that, level 4 to level 7. Level 4 is equivalent of a first year of a degree, level 5 second, and level 6 third year, and then level 7 is currently a master's. What I would say is, please don't be afraid to have a sideward step. So obviously, as I said earlier, the higher degree apprenticeships are much more competitive, whereas actually taking a sideward step and perhaps starting a little bit of a lower level, getting in with the employer, building up that trust with that employer, okay, eventually may mean that they could potentially sponsor you to do those higher and those degree apprenticeships. Okay, so if you're finding what we'll see is the higher degree apprenticeships tend to be advertised earlier. So they tend to be October, November, December time, whereas now just some of the level 3 apprenticeships are being advertised. And we've had students that have gone through every year, again, this happens, students that have gone through those higher and degree apprenticeship recruitment processes, haven't managed to be successful on that one. So then they're now looking at kind of those level 3s, okay, with the knowledge that employer will support them further down the line. Okay, so basically anyone over 16 can start an apprenticeship. You have to be not in full-time education. So once they've completed their program with us, they're accessible to do that. So after the end of the June, most of them start in the September after they've completed their education. What you'll find is it's different to UCAS. Okay, so it's advertised right throughout the year. So the earliest start kind of September, October. Okay, so we'll start to see them start of next academic year to start then the following September. And again, can be a very, very competitive process with things like assessment centres, videos that they need to record, and then kind of face-to-face interviews as well. So there's lots of information and lots of things that we can support with, but it's a case of keeping on with it and keeping looking as if you're applying for a full-time job. Lots of information on UCAS. I'm going to leave that there. You can pop back and look over that. If you go onto the UCAS hub, loads of information on there. And the nice thing is that what students can do is they can look at apprenticeship opportunities, okay, and they can also look at university opportunities side by side as well. So this is what's going to be happening. This is what the students are going to be doing over the next kind of few weeks in their tutorials, starting to build their profile, starting to make their application. Again, you can go on with them, have a look. You can go on UCAS yourself, have a play around, have a look, okay, find out when open days are as well. When it comes to looking at the apprenticeships, okay, there's no limit to the applications that students can make. So they can apply for 20, they can apply for 3, they can apply for apprenticeships and universities at the same time. They do have to meet the deadlines for universities, which I'll come on to in a bit. The application process for apprenticeships varies massively from role to role. So some will ask for a CV and cover letter. We can provide support with that. Others will be an application form. Others will potentially be like an online portal where they're sharing and filling in their information there. A little bit like the same way UCAS works, but that goes directly to the employer. So just to give you some guidance, we had a careers fair back in April that students were brought down to. We'll be running another one of those in October with different employers and different universities. Unfortunately, we've not got a space big enough to get everybody in one space all at one time. Between October and December in tutorials, we'll be looking at some kind of support for those students with regards applying for apprenticeships, practicing interviews, practicing assessment centres and things like that. And then we'll see from kind of September to December, they will start to begin to be advertised. But they, as I say, they will be ongoing. I know last week we just had one from Triumph, who's looking for mechanical engineers to start this September. So they literally are happening all year long. Okay, a little bit more information then. So this is UCAS application. So this is applying for full-time higher education course. So students will be led through this within tutorial, but as a parent, it's a good idea for you to have an understanding of this. These dates are really, really important. So these are the main deadlines. So UCAS is now open for students to start researching and looking at different courses, and all universities should have their courses on there. As from the 1st of September, okay, a student can have completed their application and press submit. Okay, now the important thing is that when they press that submit button, that actually comes into college, and then we put on their predicted grades and their references, and we do that final send off to UCAS. Okay, if students are applying for medicine, dentistry, veterinary science, or Oxford or Cambridge, there is an external deadline of the 15th of October. For all other courses, it's the 13th of January. And then after that, okay, there's things like UCAS Extra that opens if a student's not sitting and holding any courses. Things like clearing and will open also. I will come on to those in a little bit more depth because we'll start to talk about our internal deadlines as well. They do need to make sure that students apply by that equal consideration deadline. Okay, if they don't, it's still classed as an application, and they can still apply, but it's classed as a late application. The unis can't see where else students have applied, so they can just see what you've applied for. Students can apply for up to 5 universities, or 5 choices, 5 courses, unless it's medicine, dentistry, or veterinary science, and they can only have 4 plus 1 other, and they can apply to Oxford or Cambridge. There is a cost of applying to university, so that's £34.50 this year, but we do have free school meals waiver. If a young person's looked after as well, we can have those fees waived. So please come and speak to us if you feel that finance is a problem, because we can also look to offer some support for bursary students as well. Okay, talking about predicted grades, so this is always an interesting conversation. So what our students can see, and what you can see as parents on CEDA, is students' cap grades. Okay, so that's their common assessment points throughout their studies with us. So there's usually one October, kind of Easter, May, and then the end of the academic year. So we use that as a guidance to predict that UCAS grade. So teachers will look at those cap grades across the years. Okay, and will make a judgment as to what the most likely kind of predicted grade is, and then they can predict up to 1 grade higher than that highest cap grade. Okay, so when you're looking, that will be locked in from October half term. So when you're looking at universities, okay, what we should be doing is, because we're going to have a rough idea of what that is, okay, but that could go up by 1 grade, is to look at a couple of courses that are aspirational, so that's 1 grade higher than the cap, a couple of courses that are in line with the cap grade, and a backup course that's a little bit lower than their cap grade, so just in case things don't quite go to plan. Okay, that will be discussed. Hopefully it's enough information today. Teachers are very clear about how that works. It'll also be discussed with young people in tutorial as well. Okay, again, just thinking about, I think I've covered this in a little bit of detail at the moment, but thinking about our students, extra things to think about. Do they want a real research-based university? So there's ones that perhaps things like Oxford, Cambridge, Birmingham, Durham. So there's ones that perhaps got those higher kind of tariff points. Lots of other great universities there with slightly lower tariff points that offer equally good courses and a different way of learning. So when you look at universities, you'll see there is everything from kind of A star, A to kind of C's, D's, and there's foundation years if that's what a student wants and it's the right thing for them. Lots of courses are things like nursing, medicine, dentistry, veterinary science, and teaching courses. Okay, we'll have interviews, okay, to go with that. Have a look. Do you want a big university or a small university? Always have a look at those graduate destinations as well. So where do those students go? So are they moving into courses within that sector? So if you're doing a degree in economics, are people going into economics or finance or further research? Okay, or are they going into to something else? And there's lots of courses that are flexible. When you're looking at graduate jobs, there's lots of graduate jobs out there that don't require you to have a specific degree. Okay, the STEM ones tend to be the ones that require a specific degree, but there's lots and lots of courses out there that just say you need a degree. So it opens doors for those students. Just double check tuition fees. Okay, it can vary slightly between universities and like colleges. So for example, if you were to do the HNC here, that's a lot lower than going to a university, but there are some really good scholarships available. The NHS offers a £5,000 scholarship if you're doing some of their NHS courses. I know I've just had a conversation with a university today that will be advertising some bursaries, £3,000 bursaries for students that they're ring fencing for smart students and some other local schools. Obviously, check out the cost of accommodation, transport and food, depending on the cities that you're living in. When you're looking at the course, so we've kind of thought about maybe the type of university that we want to go to. When you look at the course, every course is slightly different, and that will depend on kind of specialisms of people teaching within that university. So a course with the same title may look very different. So it's always good to go and look into those course contents and find out what those range of options are available. So thinking about actually what's the most interesting to me as a young person, or knowing you're a young person, how's that gonna be of interest to me, and is it relevant to those what I want to do in the future? Okay, does it play to my strengths? If I'm doing a degree in engineering, let's say for example, okay, does it include the type of engineering that I'm most interested in, or can I specialize in a particular, let's say robotics or AI and engineering, for example? So does that, is that an option? And as I said earlier, there's 4-year course options. So does it offer things like a placement year? Is there the option to study abroad if that's what you want to do? How do they support you with finding those types of things? Do they offer summer internships? We've talked a little bit about teaching. Okay, so how led is it? And again, this is probably more for things like kind of medicine and some of those nursing and practical courses. Are you out on placement straight away, for example? Are you taught by problem-based learning, or is it very much sit in a lecture, and what suits your learning style? And again, how's the course assessed? So just to talk about through completing that UCAS application. So I've touched on this briefly. So students are going to register for the Student Hub before the summer, and they're going to complete all sections of their application. So that's working through all the personal details, making sure that's finished, and it kind of highlights it once it's finished. And then when they've done that, they then send that into college, and we then check the application. So we check it for mistakes. We check we add the reference which their teachers will write. So the teachers will be writing those before the summer, and we will be adding their predicted grades. And then we press the button to send that off to UCAS, and then universities then come back and make their offers based upon their applications. So some come back quite quickly, Okay, others may take till kind of like this, well, May time, the start of May, before their courses start, to review all their applications, and they wait till all their applications have come in that January deadline, and then review all of those and send their offers out there. But whether you apply before the 1st of September or by that January deadline, everyone gets equal consideration. Students will be linked to college, so there's a buzzword that they will use to link the application to us. That allows us to track their application and to send that off on their behalf. Okay, if a student doesn't link to us, we can't see their application, we can't provide them with a reference, and we can't submit their application on their behalf. So it's really important that they include that. Again, students will be told that in tutorial as well. So this is the thing that's probably changed the most, if you've had older siblings or older children that have gone to university. So this is the bit that the students write. Okay, obviously you can help them with it, but it's a chance to market themselves as an individual, and they write one personal statement, and that goes to every single one of their choices. So they should be thinking about actually making, if they've got a slight difference in course, okay, how are they adapting that to make that as relevant as possible. They'll have 4,000 characters, so that's single characters, not words, 47 lines, and it's broken down into 3 questions rather than one long statement. So we suggest they do that on Word, check out the speller and the grammar, and then we add that into UCAS. They don't pick up on formatting or things like that. What every personal statement does do, though, okay, it goes through a similarity detection service, so they're checking that for plagiarism to make sure there's nobody's used, like say, somebody else's or bought one online. They're also, obviously, with AI and things like that as well now, we want it to be the student's personal statement, not that where they've just pinged something into ChatGPT and asked them to write a personal statement for them, because that's likely to pull up a plagiarism check. But actually it's okay if a student maybe asks for some suggestions of things that they could talk about in their personal statement. That's absolutely fine. So there's 3 questions. So this is the big difference. So why they want to study that course or subject, how the qualifications and studies have helped them to prepare for this course or subject, and then what else they've done outside of education and why these experiences are useful. Okay, and we expect kind of roughly about kind of 30% for each. Okay, so it's, again, this is what we'll support them within tutorial. There'll be lots of support given them that. Actually, as a parent, maybe you can start kind of thinking and helping them with that as well, in case if they've had any work experience, how could that be useful? If they've done Duke of Edinburgh, what skills has that allowed them to develop? What's their real passion? And students always struggle with why they want to study that course the most, because they always know that they want to do it, but they find it hard to verbalize. So actually, what's their motivation for wanting to do that? What's their driving force? What's that? What first inspired them to be able to do that? And obviously things like qualifications and studies, that could be things outside of college. It could be kind of first aid things that they've done. It could be music qualifications. It could be things like Duke of Edinburgh. But equally then thinking about that academic rigor. So students will be studying level 3 courses now. How's that preparing them for that academic rigor of university as well? So we do want them to start early on this one, which is why we're doing it before the summer holidays. As Jane was saying earlier, all of those things that they're going to be talking about there can be switched with, why do you want to apply for this job? How's this qualifications helping you prepare for this role? Okay, what else have you done outside of current education, and how's that useful for you within that role? So yes, so really what they want to be thinking about is their academic achievements, okay, interest in that course area, knowledge of that subject area. That extra reading is a really important one beyond that syllabus, okay, so if they're reading books about a particular area of history, let's say, for example, are they understanding that would be enough for a university, especially somewhere like Oxford or Cambridge, to start thinking about actually this is something else that we need, showing a different kind of level of thinking and how they're starting to develop study independently. So universities will look at that, okay, and they'll consider these types of things here, and then they will base their offers, okay, upon that. Lots of personal statement support online, okay, on the UCAS website, and also within college. So we'll help with that. This is just a little bit of a timeline as to where we are with UCAS and how that all works as well. So what will happen is universities and college will look at the personal statement. Okay, they look at the qualifications and predicted grades, and they will look at your subject references and your references from your tutors. So we'll talk about anything extracurricular in that as well. Anything that you want us to share, part-time jobs, volunteering, work experience, all of that can be shared in there. For some courses, you might need to do an admissions test. So when young people are looking at courses, that's a question to ask at interview. Things like medicine needs and dentistry need to do the UCAT test. Some maths courses and Oxford and Cambridge, okay, have got different admissions tests. Loads of information online, loads of information on UCAS. It's really transparent as to where that is. Some will need an interview. Again, as I said earlier, tend to interview Oxford and Cambridge, always interview medicine, dentistry, veterinary science, education, healthcare courses. They have to all interview. Sometimes you'll see places like King's College London, UCL, Durham interviewing as well. And if it's a more creative course, so you may have to go for a music or a drama audition, or for art or photography, perhaps provide a portfolio. Okay, so we're fast forwarding, we've got our application in, and once the students have applied for their 5 courses, they then narrow that down to 2. So one's their firm, which should be their first choice. So that should be the one with the highest grades that they're holding, or that they want to go to and that they're holding. And their insurance should be a backup if they don't get into their firm choice. Okay, and then once you've accepted your firm and your insurance, then the remaining offers are declined. If you don't have any offers for any reason, there is something called UCAS Extra and there's something called Clearing, where we can start looking at different courses and matching up to different courses. Or if you've decided to apply a little bit later, then that may be relevant to you as well. So yeah, if you apply between Feb and July, you can apply through Extra. If you apply after the 2nd of July, between then and the start of the course, basically in October, you can add through Clearing. So just to give you an idea of some things to expect. So these are our key dates. So we've already started to talk about June, okay, writing personal statements. And what we're looking at is early July, really. We want students to have had a go at their first draft of their UCAS personal statements with their personal tutor. So that will allow them to get some feedback before the summer, to work out perhaps where those gaps are, what they're missing. Again, we'll do another apprenticeship fair and HE fair in October. And then you'll see the vast majority of university open events tend to happen June and July, September, October, into November. Some unis will keep them going once a month throughout the year, okay, but the vast majority of them will be on those timelines. So if you go onto opendays.com, or if you've got a university in mind that the young person wants to go to, they can start booking onto those now. So you can go on, sign up, okay, book in, get yourself along. I would recommend going to the open events before you apply if you can, or certainly before you accept your offers. So it gives you a real feel for the university, looking at the accommodation, perhaps the other people that are going there as well. So that's helpful. So once you've done your first draft of personal statements before the summer, students will have some universities that come in and they do some personal statement checking workshops for students, and we'll be doing some CV clinics and support application for apprenticeships as well within that autumn term. I've mentioned 1st of September being the start when you can send that to UCAS. If a student's thinking of a conservatoire, so there's some universities, drama and music courses that are through a conservatoire, that is a little bit earlier. Okay, so if you're thinking of that, speak to your tutor or come and speak to us. We're looking at a 1st of October actual external deadline for that. And the Oxford, Cambridge Medicine, Dentistry and Veterinary Science, our internal deadline for that will be the 1st of October to allow us to get that for the October deadline. And then for this January deadline, okay, we will have an internal deadline of the 20th of November. Okay, so we will communicate this out again. But we do want, we obviously processing hundreds and hundreds of applications every year for students. So we've got those deadlines nice and early so that they can be checked over properly. Those predicted grades can be checked, put on accurately, and those references can be put on accurate. Okay, obviously, if students not quite ready for that, do then have a conversation with their tutors. There is a little bit of flexibility built in. As you can imagine, if everyone sends that to us on the 1st of January, we're going to really struggle to process those. So this year, so for the actual deadlines, the 13th of Jan 2027, and with those apprenticeships and employment, there's going to be ongoing support for students right throughout the year. Literally this week, we've still been supporting students with mock interviews for those. So we really encourage students to reach out to us. It's probably the most underutilized service that we offer as a college, that apprenticeship support. But the good news stories of those students that do access that versus the ones that don't is that they're the ones that ultimately that get those offers. And we've got lots and lots of connections, lots of contacts, lots of expertise within that team. So we really, really want to encourage you to encourage your young person to come along and to access that as well. Okay. Before I go on to the next bit, Jane, is there any questions that need to be picked up?
There have been a couple of questions, but actually Caroline has done a great job of being able to answer those. So
brilliant. That's lovely. So
yeah, but if obviously the person that asked those questions, if you need further guidance, then do reach out and ask. Okay.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Okay, so things next. Okay, so what students need to be doing. So this week in tutorial, we've had each tutorial group has had or will be having a talk from a university. Okay, and then we've got some of our alumni. So students said they wanted to hear from people that had been in their situation. So we've had students and have got students in that have gone down the university route and have gone down the apprenticeship route. Okay, so now the key is for them to take that on board, to understand and to reflect on that and start to think about what they want. Okay, whether that be employment or whether it be apprenticeships or university, and do their research, find the organisations, find out when their deadlines are. When it comes to uni, get to the open days, get to the events, find out the events online, start thinking about what I can do. So if I'm not doing super curricular activities or extracurricular activities at the moment, how can I start doing that? How can I start make myself employable? For example, if you're wanting things like nursing, medicine, those types of things, they want you to have some experience within that kind of care sector. They don't really mind what that is, okay, but some volunteering within that care sector or a work placement within a hospital. How am I going to learn outside of that curriculum? So if I've got something that I'm really interested in, how can I demonstrate to a university or to an employer that it's not just my A levels that's guiding me to do this? And then the big thing is to focus on getting the best grades that they possibly can. That's going to give them the most options, even if they don't think that they want university at the moment. Every year we probably have about 10 or 12 students that take a gap year. They come back to us, they've got the grades that they want, the world's their oyster. They can apply for competitive courses at various different universities. So that would be the main thing. Do the best that you can, get the best grades that you possibly can. I'm just going to give a little bit of information about student finance. Okay, so everyone is entitled to tuition fees. Okay, so tuition fees are paid directly to the university. They're not based upon household income. Okay, and I just checked yesterday, for 2027, they're looking at being £10,050. Okay, so that goes direct to the university. So students apply through student finance for that. That normally opens about March. They suggest students get the applications in by mid-May, okay, for that to be in place for September. Okay, student loans is changing slightly, okay, from January 2027 to a lifelong learning entitlement. So this year group will be the first cohort of students where that change is happening. There's really, really limited information on that at the moment. It's about making the education and higher education more flexible and more accessible. So for a student that's going on a 3-year full-time undergraduate course or 4-year undergraduate course, nothing massively will change, okay? But what they are offering is more flexible learning options. So if that student for any reason doesn't want to go and do a full-time course but wants to be employed and do a part-time university course, they can access funding in blocks, in chunks, to pay for that. Okay, that is based upon the household income. As soon as I've got a proper update from that, we will share that with you as well. We'll get one of the universities to give some more information on that and do a proper talk. Just talking at these really things that are coming up next, the real kind of options and resources for yourself. So if you haven't heard of Unifog already, that's a portal, a resource. It's got loads and loads of information on apprenticeships, post-18 options. It's got lots of extracurricular reading on there, podcasts, TED Talks, things that students can access independently. There's also some slightly different tools for writing personal statements and things on there, so parents can access that as well. So feel free to use that code KUCN Parents and have a look at that. These are all mainly apprenticeship websites, so I will leave those up there, and I will share this presentation as well. You'll be able to click on those. Lots of information also on there about kind of open days. Money Saving Expert's got loads of really good stuff on student finance, government website on student finance, so you can work out what you might be entitled to. Caroline's links on there as well, to book an appointment with her if you missed the QR code earlier. And then this QR code here, okay, takes us to our careers Padlet. Okay, so if you scan that, this is updated weekly, and any apprenticeships that employers have contacted us about, that we know are live and within the local area, we'll advertise on them. There's lots more under that apprenticeships banner, but there's also the generic websites that I showed on the previous page, lots of information about universities, summer schools, how to do find work experience or volunteering, jobs within the local area, things you could take, companies you could take a gap year with, things like finance, bursaries, etc., etc. So lots and lots of information on there. You can access that as a parent. The young people can access that direct as well. Okay, really good guides on UCAS for parents, parents and carers guides as well. You can sign up for a parents newsletter, and that's just their contact details. Thank you very much. That was very much of a whistle-stop tour. I hope that's been useful for you all. Thank you so much for joining us. Are there any other questions that anyone's got before we finish?
Rachel, somebody has asked one question in the chat. For students, are the teacher going to assist with students with references?
So the teachers write the references. So the teachers, that's their professional academic reference. Okay, the personal statement is what the students write themselves, so there will be support with that. They'll have lots of information in tutorial, but also there will be this personal statement clinics where the universities come in, the students can take a draft, okay, of what they've done, and they will give them some feedback on that as well. So there's lots of support there. Anything else?
There's no other questions on the chat.
No, that's brilliant. Okay,
just lots of thank yous, that's all.
Yeah, I'll stop recording.